So let's give us a sense of how you grew up, because we all really want to know, how does someone wind up in prison, number one, and then for 52 years, number two. And we're not looking for causal answers, but we're just looking to learn.
Well, I want to take this chronologically. I was born, amazingly, in 1946. So I am 75 years old. I was born in North Philadelphia, a section of Philadelphia that, at that time, Philadelphia was pretty much a segregated city. So I was born and raised around a lot of African American men and women. My mother and father were workers, hard workers. I had an elder sister that took care of my brothers and I. One thing that I didn't say last time I was here was that there was a period in my life when I did not speak. When I did not speak, I didn't talk. And the reason why I didn't talk is because I stuttered horribly. I couldn't put two words together. I mean, and I'm not doing this as a joke, but I sounded like this. Do you? And people laughed at me. I mean, growing up, we're kids. Kids do that, you know, of course. Kids can be rough. Kids can be mean. And they laughed at me. And I didn't like it. So I did two things. I stopped talking. I stopped talking for about 4 years. And I fought. If you laughed at me, I was going to fight you. So I fought a lot.
How old were you when you were fighting?
Oh, I would say from the time I was 10 till maybe 14, or 9 till I was 13.
And when was the time you weren't speaking?
Doing that's
the same
that I'm
time.
talking about.
Okay, so you weren't a little one at that point. You were.
Oh no, I
kid.
was 8, 9 years old.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask?
Sure.
Where did you, or when did you encounter? I'm jumping to another.
Go ahead.
Piece in your childhood, but it seems relevant to what you're saying. That where people started calling you like the bad kid.
Well, of course, that was this period.
Okay.
I'm fighting every day. People, other boys' mothers would see that, and I became a good fighter. You know, in those days, Philadelphia was known as a town of prize fighters. We had gyms. Underground gyms, gyms on the corner, gyms in the basement of the buildings, everywhere. And so when I was maybe 9 years old, I started going to the gym to learn to box.
By yourself? You or did you go with friends or?
No, I mean, there were people in the neighborhood that were there, but I went there by myself. You know, and I learned to box. And I learned the ways to defend yourself, ways to be on the offense. And that put me at an advantage in terms of fighting. And it wasn't the best thing.
What did it do to you in school?
Well, see, that's another thing. At the same time that I stopped talking, stopped communicating because I stuttered, I started fighting, I started getting a reputation of being a quote-unquote bad boy. Same thing happened in school, and I just stopped going. I just stopped going to school.
And what age were you at that time?
Everything that I'm talking about has happened around when I was 9 years old until I was 14. Everything that I'm describing now was in that same 4-year period. Mm-hmm. And I stopped going to school, and as a result of that, I started going to jail, juvenile institutions. Why? For truancy, for fighting, for being a bad boy. The police in the neighborhood knew me. And their impression of me was, that's one of them hoodlums. It's one of those thugs.
What was the first time you encountered the system?
Oh, well, the system, again, I went to jail in the juvenile institutions for truancy and for fighting and for being, quote unquote, what they call incorrigible, which means I would not do better. Some of the roughest places I've ever been in my life were juvenile institutions. They still are today, which is why I am dead set on making change and with the criminal justice system in and of itself, but with juvenile justice, it's just off the charts.
What makes it different than an adult institution?
First and foremost, children.
How so?
We are vicious. Children can be vicious if they're not monitored, if they're not mentored, if they're not directed, if they're not shown that there are a multiplicity of choices that they can make. You know, a child will react intuitively, and the first thing he does is act out of emotion. But if he had someone that's telling him, oh, wait a minute, you don't have to do it that way. What do you mean I don't have to? What? No, you can. And sit there and sat down and talk with a child as if he had intelligence. We didn't have that in juvenile institutions. In fact, the strange thing about that place, it was peopled, it was staffed by some of the most sadistic people, adults I've ever met in my life. Those were 4 years of my life that I will never forget.
Can I ask you a question in the midst
ma'am.
of those 4 years? Mm-hmm. I want you to share the story about your birthday.
Okay.
But I don't know where it fits in the...
I was 13 years old.
Okay,
then,
so it's in this time too.
Still right in that same
Can you tell
period.
that story?
I was 13 years old and, you know, being a bad boy, but I knew different. I felt who I was. I had known myself for 13 years. And I knew intrinsically I was not a bad boy. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I would rather have fun than to see people cry. Of course, within my neighborhood, all I would hear from people's parents and their older brothers and sisters is, stay away from Irvin, he's a bad boy. Stay away from Irvin, he's a bad boy. And I'd hear this every day. And I'd go back and sit and question myself, am I a bad boy? I said, no. Until I said, wait a minute. If that's what they think I am, that's what I'm going to be. A decision I made based on what was happening outside of myself. A decision I made with my immature juvenile mind that I knew was wrong, that I knew was not me. When I was 13, I had my first birthday party in my life. It's almost a transition stage in the life of a young African-American boy. You turn 13, now you are a teenager. And I had a little party, had friends over and what have you. It was so nice. It was so good. And my father gave me an envelope, and with a card in it, and I looked, it was $20. That was 1959. $20 was, look, a hamburger was 25 cents. A Cadillac car was $2,000. I mean, I had $20 and I was 13 years old. I was rich. And I told my little guys, we were on our way to the park. It was about maybe 8, 9, 10 blocks away. I says, everybody come on with me because I'm going to buy everybody something. We're going over to the park. We're going to have fun. We were on our way to the park, got maybe 4 blocks away. When we walked down the street, about maybe 7 or 8 of us, a cop car pulled up. All right, everybody stop. So, against the wall. Remember, I just turned 13. I was 12 yesterday.
And had you already been in the juvenile system at this point?
I had already been in the juvenile system, but that had not impacted my belief of who police officers were. I mean, plus these were adults, these were police officers, and their job was to protect and serve. And I believe that with all my heart. So they put us against the wall and said, "Where you going?" We told them we're going to the park. And they said, "Okay, let me turn around." And they searched everyone, and he patted me down, and I felt him go in my back pocket. I had a little button on my back pocket where I put my envelope with my money, and I buttoned it back up, and I felt him go in there. He said, "Turn around." I went in, I saw him do this, and then stuffed the envelope back in my pocket, and then they both left and got in the car. I said, "All right, get out of here." I took 2 steps, went to my back pocket, pulled my envelope out, opened it, and my $20 was gone. I said, "You took my money, give me my money. My father gave me my money." He said, by my language, he said, "If you don't get the fuck out of here, nigga, get out, go." Something happened to me. Something happened to my world that day because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that an adult and a police officer had just robbed me, and I was a kid. But that stuck with me the rest of my life, of course, and it helped shape and flavor decisions that I made from that point on.
Can you share a little bit about your dad and the interaction? I forget if you talked to him about it.
Well, I told the police that I was going to tell my father, and he says, "Go ahead, tell your father. We don't give a fuck." And I went home, and the first thing I did when my father came home from work, I told him what happened. I said, "Dad, the police took my money." He said, "Where were you at? What were you doing?" And I told him everything. I saw a look come over his face. He didn't say, "Come on, you're going with me. We're going to the police station. We're going to..." Just a look come over his face, and he said, "All right, go ahead. Go ahead." I said, "But what about..." He said, "Go ahead, boy." And I realized that my father, up until that point, was Superman, as far as I was concerned, to every little boy and girl. Your father's your world. Your mother's your world. And again, something else changed for me that day. And stayed with me for a long, long, long time.